If you've been looking for a way to lower the stress level and increase the productivity and positivity within your school building, that means students, staff, administrators, parents even, then today's podcast is for you. I had the opportunity to chat with Dr. Kaylee Arnold and Danielle Brunson, who run the Namaste Project. The Namaste Project helps schools hone in on the mindfulness practices that are going to make them succeed. They help anywhere from lowering stress levels and resetting expectations to creating these Zen-like oasis places within the school building where teachers can go to reset, to refresh, and refocus. And they even help some schools eliminate the need for detention, for in-school suspension, and help those students who need it most create coping mechanisms and learn ways to reroute their negative behaviors. If this sounds too good to be true, it definitely is not. And today's episode is going to be something you want to pay attention to.
Welcome to the Student-Centered World Podcast, where we talk about all things hands-on teaching and keeping your energy and sanity in the classroom. This teacher turned consultant is making it her mission to help as many teachers as possible become the best version of themselves and keep their passion for teaching on fire. It's her hope that we never forget why we desire to have a passion for educational progress. This is Student-Centered World, and this is Jen Bry Soccer.
Okay, so as we get started here, why don't you guys just do kind of a brief introduction, who you are, what your background is, that kind of good stuff.
So I'm Dr. Kaylee Arnold, and my background is actually, I'm a retired orthopedic surgeon. I started off in the physical world. I was an elite gymnast and a competitive dancer, and I was all about movement. And then after I danced all through college, and then after college went to medical school, and then got into orthopedic surgery because I liked working with athletes and I liked actually physically fixing people. But then I moved to Atlanta for a private practice back in 2009. And it was just really not very fulfilling. It was really like, I call it fast food medicine. It was like get them in and out. It was all about volume and obviously economics. And it was just not what I had signed up for, because I always felt I was a healer. And I was like, there's got to be something more. There's got to be something more. I didn't really know what it was. So fast forward, I ended up taking a sabbatical. And during that time, I got my Pilates certification, bar certification, group fitness, and then started teaching Pilates full-time eventually in 2016. And then 2017, I went to Bali and studied yoga and Reiki energy healing. And that was kind of like a huge turning point for me. I was like, oh, this is healing.
You found it.
So, yeah. So I came back 2017 full of all this light and love and just wanted to share it. And so I started teaching yoga in addition to Pilates and healing clients with Reiki. And I started realizing that if I had had this when I was in medicine, I wouldn't have been so burned out and just feeling, overwhelmed. And so I started applying what I learned, helping other professionals who are in high stress professions like doctors and whatever. Fast forward, I met Danielle at Sacred Thread, and she was talking about this project. And I was like, well, of course, I already do this for adults, and sure, teachers need it. My mother was in Pittsburgh public schools for 40 years. So I saw firsthand, what teachers would go through. And so I was like, yeah, they need this too. And so for me, it was just like a perfect fit to just apply, mindfulness and meditation and mindset shift and yoga. Everybody can use it no matter really what profession that you're in, but especially those who are in high stress professions like teachers and obviously doctors like I was in. So that just kind of was a perfect fit for us. So that's kind of where we are now and how this kind of gelled together. And so it's nice because I still use my Western medicine background. I'm currently working on my master's in Ayurvedic and integrative medicine, which is basically putting together Eastern medicine with ancient Indian medicine with Western medicine so we can learn to treat the whole person. We talk a lot about this consciousness-based medicine, looking at the whole person. So this all just feeds into everything that I feel that we're looking at. Like if someone comes to you with a certain energy, has to do everything with like what they ate that day, you know, what their mindset is, you know, how did they sleep, you know, where are they spiritually opposed to just physically. And so all of these things come together, just kind of, it makes sense. And you can see the shift in people, both my own private clients and also working in schools. It's fascinating. So our hope is to take this shift and like just change the culture of the entire classroom, of the entire school environment, one breath at a time.
Yeah. So I met Kaylee, like she mentioned, through a yoga studio we were both teaching at. And I loved the fact that she had that medical background. Also, just her energy was just great. But, you know, once I thought about partnering and who would be a great person for the Namaste Project, I was like, I really want to work with somebody who isn't just a yoga teacher, you know, because we really want to bring in the healing and the science behind it. Now, my background is in education. I started teaching in 2007, 2006.
Me too.
I went to school for anthropology, and then I got out of school and I was like, what am I going to do with this degree? So I went back to and got a master's in elementary education. And I taught elementary and then university overseas for 4 years.
Wow.
So yeah, I taught in Asia, and I think being over there and seeing the cultural difference in how they approached education and how they valued it and how teachers were treated and how the school culture was and the climate was really stuck with me and has had a big impact on my approach to school leadership and teaching since I've been back. And then I came back to the States in about 2011, 12, and I started working in a Catholic school. And then I was like, I need more money. So I went to public school. I taught for a couple of years, and I moved into school leadership where I was an assistant principal and then a school principal. And I really specialize in virtual education. So I've started 3 different virtual charter schools. Actually, when I was living in North Carolina, I moved there to start one of their statewide public charter schools that is virtual. So when I was in that space, we had a lot of behavioral issues, but it was a different type of approach to it because the kids weren't in the building with us. So we were like really focused on how is PBIS going to work in a virtual environment? How can we get kids at home to focus, to listen, not just to us as their teachers in school, but also to their parents. So it kind of created this space for me to really look around at what can we do to try to solve these focus issues, these outbursts that we're seeing in virtual classrooms that parents are telling us about. And that's when I started to learn more about mindfulness in the classroom. So we just started incorporating that some in the schools I was in. I talked to another school leader in a brick and mortar school who was doing breathing for 5 minutes at the start of every school day across the whole school through their PA system, you know? Mm-hmm. And I was like, wow, and she was telling me what an impact it was having on kids' behavior. So we just started kind of doing mindful introductions to our live sessions. And I just started seeing how that was really helping. We were hearing from parents. And then I'm a parent. I do yoga. I've been really big into yoga for a long time. And I started doing those things with my own kids who were having, you know, the typical toddler issues of like throwing things and not sharing and getting frustrated. And I was noticing such a big difference. So after being in school leadership, I left and started coaching other school leaders. How do you do this well? I did that for 2 years. And then similar to what Dr. Arnold said, I was just super burnt out. And I found that education after a decade really wasn't making me feel the way I wanted to. Like I got into the field to help kids. I was working for a big EMO, an education management organization. And I was coaching teachers and principals from home. I had this really flexible schedule, and I was making great money, but I was really unhappy and I wasn't seeing kids learning. And I was like, I want to do this to help children. So I left and I spent about a year just kind of teaching yoga, which I had already been doing. I made that my full-time thing, and doing my own yoga and meditating and spending time with my family. And then I was like, you know what, I really want to work with kids again. How can I do that and be impactful? What's the best way for us? And we just got together and we were like, let's start doing what we're seeing working in California and in Maryland, in Atlanta, which is where Kaylee and I are both based. And we wanted to just bring these programs into schools and help schools understand you don't have to do traditional disciplines. There's proven fact that meditation and mindfulness will impact student behavior and academic outcomes, because we know that that is really important to school leaders. And so that's kind of where our project came from, but it has grown so much because of COVID. So,
I'm sure.
Because of that, we now work with schools all over the place. So we do like these mini sessions, we train teachers. So it's been we talk about COVID a lot and the weird blessings that have come out of it, along with the stress. And we've found that a lot of schools are more interested in like, oh my goodness, how are we going to help these kids with social emotional learning and the trauma and being at home and everything that's going on. And then we're able to reach them without the travel. So everybody's kind of shifted into the space that I've been in for a long time. And they're like, let's get in a Zoom. And I'm like, great. So we're training schools and teachers and school leaders through virtual, and it's giving us a much wider reach and a much bigger impact. So that's been a big blessing for us, because our big goal is to get this into as many schools as possible, because it works and it helps kids. And like Kaylee said, we want to change the whole culture of a school. We really focus on teacher training. So a lot of programs will send in staff, and we do that with some schools, but our biggest thing is if you don't have teacher buy-in and you don't have teachers being mindful and teachers doing all these things, it's not going to matter.
Right.
So that's kind of what makes us a little bit different than some of the other really amazing groups of people that are doing similar things with yoga, meditation, and mindfulness in different school settings.
Yeah, I totally agree with you with that. If the teachers aren't buying in and they're thinking it's just something else on their plate and they're not giving it the mind or just taking the time to really understand it, it's useless. I know I was in a school where we all went through mindfulness training and this and that, and they were like, okay, we're going to make it a curriculum. We're going to make it so every day you have to do this, that, and then it just became something else that teachers had to do, and it completely lost its valuability, really. So when you meet with a group of teachers or a new school and you're finding that there is resistance, or, it was upper administration that says, we're going to do this, and the teachers don't have any background or don't understand you, how does that normally work for you?
Usually when we do the mini breaks, they're sold.
Yeah.
So we do these little 15-minute pop-ins. Well, like when they're having like their meetings or whatever, we'll just take 15 minutes. And we'll do a brief introduction of what mindfulness meditation is, and then we'll take them through a breath work. So we'll do like alternate nostril breathing or 3-part breath or something, right? And, then there's like a moment of self-reflection, like, how do you feel? Okay, yeah, this is kind of nice. And then we take them through a guided meditation. And usually after that, like all the comments they're typing is like, oh my God, I feel amazing. I need this every day, blah, blah, blah. That's the buy-in. So again, instead of just taking someone through a training, have them experience it, right? So when you experience how good that you feel, pretty much everything we do as human beings is driven by, we want to feel good, right? Things that you buy, things that you do, we do it because you want to feel good. So if you can sit and breathe for 60 seconds and feel good, why wouldn't you do it? Right. So again, you know what I mean? So again, if they look at it as not something they've got to teach their kids, look at it as something that you are benefiting from, that you personally, as a teacher, as a mother, as a whatever, you're getting a benefit by doing this. And once they get the buy-in of how good it makes them feel, then they're like, oh yeah, now I can share this with whomever. That's how we teach it to them. Like, we teach it to them so they can experience it. And they're like, okay, so now you can share it, right? It's not more like a curriculum, like, then you have to do this, and then you have to do this activity, and blah, 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 right? So that's really the buy-in, is those mini breaks and just letting them feel it firsthand. And then they want to share it with everybody. It's just the same way that Danielle and I, like when I found yoga and meditation and, all these things, first thing I want to do was share it. Like, oh my God, if people were doing this, they feel amazing.
Right.
So, why aren't you doing this? So, yeah.
Do you find there's ever an issue, and I think that this is very common with teachers, where they learn this and they know it's fantastic and they go through it and they feel great, but then regular life kind of trickles back in and it goes by the wayside? How do you keep them where they stay engaged with it? Because I think it's just very natural that as soon as the pace picks up or something, a wrench gets thrown in the works, that we just go back to what's comfortable and what we know and not the things that are necessarily good for us.
Yeah, I mean, because you've been in education, right?
Yep.
So when we talk with schools and we do like our discovery calls and we're planning out exactly how we want to implement a program with them, because every school's a little different, right?
Right.
We want to know, how many things are you doing this year? Do you have 10 other initiatives? Because it's very hard, first of all, to get a bunch of buy-in from staff, even when they do feel great, if they're also implementing like 3 new math programs, 2 reading programs, and this, that, and the other thing. So sometimes we'll suggest a lighter side to it, but it's got to be school-wide, honestly. I feel like, or the teachers have to really, as Kaylee said, know how it makes them feel. And that's why we really focus on providing sessions to the teachers as well, because this isn't just for kids. Right. If you don't have your staff feeling good, it helps with teacher retention, first of all. And I mean, I used to lose teachers all the time. They would, it's a hard job. It doesn't pay well. It's super stressful. And I think still the numbers are, after 5 years, most of them are gone. So right. This is something that keeps your staff happy. It shows that you care when you give them the sessions too. So it's not just for the kids. Like one of the schools we're working with, we're going over there Friday to help them to design a room for staff to go to. It's just for staff.
Wow.
And it's going to have meditation centers. We're like helping them pick out everything, the sound, the touch, the feel, the smells, and just create a whole space only for their staff. So they've really bought in on not just providing it school-wide to students, but that their teachers need support, their teachers need help. I used to always say I want to work at Google because they have like exercise and healthy food and all of that. So some schools are starting to realize that they have to do similar things, because if teachers' mental health isn't taken care of, how are they going to teach these kids?
Right.
And we talk about that a lot in our sessions and in our e-courses about, how it starts with the teacher. If it's not there, it's not going to happen. But yeah, definitely with that buy-in. And then it's really easy. Our tier 1 level of implementation is so easy, because I've been in that boat, and that's our biggest thing. We don't want to give you something else. It's this really difficult social emotional learning curriculum to do. Now, when you get to tier 2 and tier 3, there is more in-depth things, but just pausing and starting your day school-wide with mindful breathing and movement, which we train the teachers and everyone on, it's not hard to do. So that's also something that really helps with buy-in. It's super simple. Teachers can do it, and they see their kids focused and doing better. It makes their job easier. So it's one of those items that's a little easier to sell than like, hey, let's do like reading eggs across the board. You have to upload data, download this, and check all these million things, just because there's immediate benefit. So It's a lot easier to get that on them.
Mm-hmm. So you just mentioned that there are different tiers to your program. What do they look like? I mean, can you walk into a school and say, it looks like you guys should start at tier 2, or is it a gradual program throughout every school? What does that look like?
So it does depend on the school. So some schools just want PD for their staff. They're like, we just want you to teach our teachers this, give us a few sessions and show us how to do the basics. But it's kind of an approach that we take to implementing it, similar to RTI. Like everybody in the school gets tier 1. Everybody gets to breathe together in the morning. Everybody gets to breathe together before they go home. No matter what's going on with the kid, you all get that. If kids are struggling and they're having outbursts, or that they've been referred to counseling, or they're going to detention a lot, they might move into tier 2 interventions, where they might go to a meditation room, or they might have more yoga with the PE teacher or something like that. And then if they get to tier 3, that's normally when they already have like a behavior improvement plan or something like that. And there's just more intensive practice, more breathing, more yoga, more meditation. So we work with the schools depending on, where they're at. So ideally, you're ready to do all of it, but we know that that's not realistic. Sometimes you just want to get started in year 1 with just tier 1. Let's all breathe together. And then maybe next year we'll add that meditation room, and we'll add this and we'll add that. So since our goal is just to change school culture any way we can, we try to make it really flexible and meet with the school leader and talk to them about like, where are you at? What can you realistically do? And we try to get buy-in from the school leader, like, hey, are you really going to do this? Because if not, let's do it smaller steps. So that way it doesn't get lost in the shuffle, and kids really get the benefit that we want them to get.
That's fantastic. So I know a lot of schools, and this is actually how we had connected, are talking at least about the idea of taking away traditional detention for the bad kids or the kids that made a mistake or whatever, and moving it into more of like a yoga based or meditation based, or teaching them, how to avoid that behavior in the future. Is that something that would be on one of those lower levels in a school, or is that more you have to have stuff established, or is it on a school by school basis? What has your experience been with that?
Well, I mean, I think definitely you have to have something established first. Like you need to have the tier one. You need to have everyone breathing and being mindful, right? And the detention, or as we call them, like the Zen zones, that's more like she was saying, behavior. That's more like a tier two, right?
Okay.
And so that's what we're working on this one school with, trying to phase out detention, in school suspension. In fact, they're trying to change the name of their ISS to make it something else. And we're trying to change that into like, it's not where the bad kids go, right? This is a place where they can release, maybe write out affirmations, let out their frustrations, take meditation. And there's a social behavior counselor in the room with them, right? Going through these things with them. So, because, as we've seen with traditional discipline treatment, it hasn't been working. The same kids keep coming back to detention. The same kids keep getting suspended. And why is that? So if you see a behavior, a negative behavior, and you keep responding it or reinforcing that negative behavior with a negative treatment, that's what you're going to continue to get. So if you just think about, let's say you have an argument with someone, and if you two keep coming back at each other with, you're wrong, no, you're wrong, you're wrong, nothing gets accomplished, right? Like nothing gets accomplished. So to break the cycle, one of the parties has to stop and breathe, actually listen to what that person is saying, find out where that person is coming from. Like, why are you feeling this way? Why are you so angry? Why are you so holding so strong to this opinion? And then you can appropriately respond. And your response will probably shock that person, right? Because they're not expecting that. And then immediately their behavior has to change, right? Their immediately behavior is like, oh, well, okay, I wasn't expecting that. So, and that's the same thing you find in children, if they're expecting to be berated and you come up them with something else, they're like, oh, okay, well, let me think about my behavior. And then also you can get to the root of the problem. And that's the whole issue with discipline, is that we never understand why children are acting out. We're just so worried about we're just so reactive.
Right.
And just, why are you acting like this? What's wrong with you? Stop and breathe. Have Johnny stop and breathe. All right, let's discuss this, And then you actually find out why the person is having the issue, and it can be resolved. And then maybe Johnny won't be in detention every Friday.
Right.
So it's kind of breaking that cycle. But again, like I said, you have to have some level of mindfulness established in the school. You're not just going to go straight to Zen zones, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have to have that culture kind of simmering. So I'd say that the detention replacement is definitely like a tier two implementation.
Gotcha. And it makes total sense. I mean, my 7-year-old, he's my younger one, and we call him our Sour Patch Kid, because he either is the sweetest child on earth or is a terrorist. And with him, he's 7, so he gets in his moods and does whatever. But if it's consistent and he keeps going, I immediately realize there's something else going on. None of the things that he's reacting to is actually what's setting him off. And that's when I will take him aside and talk to him, and I'll finally find out that it's something that happened the day before, or something completely different from anything that he has been reacting to. But I know it's difficult to do that in the classroom, to pull a kid aside and have those conversations. So in these schools that you're working with, are you training the teachers to do that individually each time, or are you training maybe one person in the school to be the go-to when a kid is having an issue, or does it really just depend?
I think it depends. We definitely we have a whole PD session we do that's all on listening and how to empathetically listen and ask the right questions from kids, and also from teachers to each other, because I think a lot of times within like PLCs and groups and teams, there's a lot of misunderstanding. So we really focus a lot on communication and how important it is to listen, to to ask questions in a way that is really trying, as Kaylee was saying, to get to the root of what's really going on. Because as you mentioned, a lot of times it's not what we think it is.
Right.
So we want every teacher to understand that, and we want them to have those basic questioning skills. But when you have 30 kids in a room and one kid is being set off, sometimes they need to be sent to the area, the meditation room, the Zen room, whatever your school is calling it. And there is a person who is more thoroughly trained in like really addressing and answering, and then kind of saying, all right, let's get to the root, and then give you this activity that we've designed in this room. And that's where sometimes there's a disconnect, where you'll get schools that are want to just put the meditation room in place and just send kids there, but they don't really have like a plan on why are they going there. Like, did we try to address it in the classroom in the least restrictive way? Okay, that didn't work, and then we send them there, and there's somebody who's more involved and knows a little bit more about some different options to address the behavior to assist at a higher level.
Right. That makes sense. So do you guys have a school maybe you've been working with for a while, or, you just started out working and you feel like it's your best case scenario? Like, this school has it all figured out. It's your model. Do you have a place or do you aspire to have a place that's just, it's it? Like, you can go to it and you can say, here is what we are looking for.
I mean, we talk about that a lot when we talk with schools. We're like, fidelity, can you guys really do everything? And because we want the data, and there's other programs doing what we're doing, and the data is like up and down. We do see a lot of data that shows that behavior issues are fixed, but where we're struggling with is like giant academic growth data. Now, there's definitely trends in academic growth, but because a lot of the schools that have been implementing programs like this are in areas that deal with, like they're underfunded. These are like Title I schools with a lot going on. Sometimes there's so many factors happening that it's really hard to see if they're really getting the benefits because of so much other things. And you know how that is,
Sure.
What's really causation and what's not. So definitely, I would say that when you talk to a school and the whole school staff, like the school leadership, because we all know school leaders have to really drive something. When they already have the concept that they want to be more student-centered in how they're handling things, and they also want to support their staff, like that's already the ideal school. When they've already come to you and they say, we care about our teachers and we want to help our teachers, and then we really want our kids to have a really good learning experience and like being here. I think that that's right away. I know that we can work with them. When they're like, we want a quick fix and we're just trying to figure out like, if this is going to help, it's hard because it's not just a little Band-Aid. You have to buy into the idea, which we firmly believe, that mindset and mindfulness and meditation, and then yoga for trauma, like different poses to release like stored trauma, really will impact student well-being, behavior, and teacher well-being. And teacher behavior too, honestly, because we see that in classrooms, sometimes inappropriate teacher behavior. So this helps with all of that. And so ideally, it's that leadership buy-in. And then a school that, you get schools where you have a different principal every year and different this and that. Those are just harder to work with. But we, Kaylee and I are always up for challenges. So we're like, what can we do? How can we help you? We want to figure out a way, but we're also very realistic. We don't want to waste people's time and effort. We're like, maybe you need to fix this first.
Right.
There's some great schools that have been able to really impact the detention part. Like, they're not suspending and they're not dealing with detention anymore because of that. And I think for us, that's a huge win. Maybe you're not getting these assessment grade jumps that you want, like 10 points on average in grade level. But if you've got kids who are at school and are happy and they're learning, I have a lot of strong feelings about assessments, so I won't go there.
Fair. So if an administrator is listening to this podcast right now, or even a teacher, and they're interested, but they're not sure if it's the right fit for their school, or if they just want to find out more information, where would you suggest them going to learn a little bit more about the concept?
Well, of course, they can come check out our website, the Namaste Project. On there, we actually have a pretty good lot of information on there about what's been implemented in schools, what the data shows thus far. And then, of course, they could just book a call with us. That's the quickest way. That's kind of how we, if you want to say, vet people to find out where they're at. We do discovery calls all the time, usually with the school leader, and to say, what's going on in your school? Do you have, or what is the social emotional learning program in your school? How is it being implemented? Is it just like little piecemeal, or is it school wide? Is it part of the curriculum? Like, what's happening? So again, we have to kind of feel what the temperature is of the school, and then we know where we can go in. And again, we try to meet people where they're at. Like, we have this one school leader, and she was actually really beautiful. She said, a year or two ago, I would not have been ready for you guys. And she had, the insight to know that, like, if she had found us a year or two ago, she would not have been in the place to receive what we're trying to offer. Right. She had to get to her school to, a certain level to even be able to accept what the programs that we're offering. And that was beautiful that she already had the insight to see that, because normally we have to fish through and figure that out.
Right.
Like, where can we fit in, if at all? Right. So again, our website is thenamasteproject.net. Also, Danielle does a beautiful job with our social media, and we're always posting all these juicy tidbits, mindfulness tips, live Instagram with teachers and counselors is the .namaste project on Instagram as well. And we're getting ready to launch our course, which is going to have all lots of juicy stuff in there as well. So
well, the course is, and we're going to tweak it a little. It's for districts, but we also created a version for parents at home. And so it's really approachable, because we know a lot of parents, we had a lot of people personally asking us, how do I implement your program in my homeschool or, during hybrid learning? My kids are back at school because they're, but the area I live in, they're out till January. So it's really, we've got a version for parents and for teachers who just want to get a kind of an introduction into the science behind all of this, and then practices and activities, lots of really great stuff in there. So we want to make sure that moms and dads could get the class or get the training without having to be enrolled in, or, working at a school that we work with.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's also really good for a teacher who believes in it, whose district might not. So they have the opportunity to have that, place in their classroom, even if their school is not quite buying in. And a lot of times you'll see that it's going really well in a specific classroom, and then all of a sudden other people notice and they want to know, what are you doing? How are you getting those kids to be calm, or whatever the case may be? I think that would be, that's going to be really beneficial all around, for sure.
Yeah, and I think this year we've been super focused on teacher support. Like, we've been doing a lot of what we can afford to do for free. And then also in our communities, we'll train different groups of people who work in some of the places that are supporting students, that they're, because, we don't have after school activities and programs as much because of COVID.
Right.
So we did a training for a youth program at the Latin American Association here, where we were just like, how can we just continue to spread this concept of breathing and pausing and being mindful, and giving kids these tools that they really need. Social emotional learning with self-awareness and self-regulation can all be met with just simply stopping and pausing and learning to just not be so reactive, as Kaylee was talking about earlier.
Right.
So we really try to get that just basic little information out, like, hey, just learn how to do these mindful breaths with kids. So sometimes it's just as simple as, in that course, learning how to teach that breathing, or we work with community members as well and supporting kids outside of school settings. But like, our whole mission is just to get as many people, as many children as we can being mindful and learning how to self-regulate, because I think, look at adults right now, they clearly did not learn that. So
right.
we're like, can we fix this? Can we fix the world a little bit? Can we make it a little bit better by teaching kids to self-regulate? Just the last little personal story for me. My child this morning has this weird thing with clothes. He's 5, and he'll be like, this is bothering me. And I know, when he was 3, it was really frustrating for me as a parent. I was like, dude, just put the pants on and let's go. You know, like, I don't have time for this. The tag is touching your leg, or today it was the cuff was touching his foot. I'm like, are you serious? So typically my response, even as I tell people, meditation teacher, yogi for decade or more, all these things, I would still be very reactive. Get your clothes on and let's go. You know, I'm Puerto Rican. We're like, no, I'm going to hit you with the shoe kind of thing. But ever since I started really incorporating breathing and mindfulness with him, so instead today we sat down and we were just like, let's breathe. And we did bee breathing, which we have posted on our Instagram. It's a super simple breath. Kids love it. It creates a vibration in the back of their throat. We did 3 rounds of that. And then I just said inhale and exhale to him for 30 seconds. And he was like a totally different kid after that. So it's just the little things that parents and teachers and schools can do that make such a huge impact on how kids go about their day. And it's just been really amazing. We really love our work, and we're really lucky to do something that we enjoy and that you can see, because, you know, sometimes you're working on something and you have to wait forever to see the results. We get to see the results very quickly, which is a great blessing to have.
And that's fantastic. And I think there is so much to be said about teaching the kids how to do this on their own. My oldest son, he's almost 10, has dealt with anxiety for years. The apple does not fall far. So I was able to pick up on it really, you know, when he was very young. And I've done the breathing thing with him for years now. And we just do very basic, like breathe in for however many seconds, hold it, and then breathe out really slowly. And now, I mean, it's taken years, but I'm starting to see him do it on his own. When he feels ramped up, he'll kind of just take himself to the side, do that, and calm down, and then come back. And I think if more kids can learn what their, I don't want to say what their triggers are, but things that set them off, and know this is happening to me right now, this is what I need to do to calm down, and then things will be better. I think you're right. We would be so much better as a society because people right now don't know how to breathe.
Don't. It's very reactive in the world right now. We talked a lot about how stressful it is to be a teacher right now. That's why we're like, hey, we'll come in, we'll do a free session. You guys learn how to breathe. You learn how to not be so reactive. Then teach it to your kids. And you just have such a better classroom culture.
Yeah.
Kaylee leads a lot of mini sessions. And I went to one the other day because I was stressed. I was like, I'm going to come, even though, you know, I'm a member. I'm going to this free session at the school. And I felt so good. And, you know, 5 minutes of meditation with her, and I felt amazing.
Well, one thing we do, especially with our older kids, is we let them know people who they idolize who are meditating, right? Because, you know, it's not cool, right? But then when you find out what, like LeBron James and Steph Curry and J-Lo and all these people that they look up to have a mindfulness practice, who meditate, they're like, oh, like, how do you think they're so successful? Right. And so that's another thing. So just kind of like approaching kids in a different way is not like, you know, something they have to do, or if it's part of their discipline, you know, just say like, hey, you know what, if you focus like LeBron James, then, you know, he might not be in the NBA, but you might be better than you are right now. You know what I mean? Just like kind of giving them a different view. And like Danielle talks about all the time when we do yoga with the kids, again, the older kids, like we're not using like the mantra music that we use in the studio. Like we try and find current music that they can relate to. So they're not like, oh, this is some weird, goofy stuff or whatever. They're like, oh, all right, this is cool. We try and bring figures, you know, people who look like them, people they can relate to teach them yoga. So again, it's just approaching it in a way that's digestible for everyone.
Right. No, that's absolutely true. And you need the kids to buy in just as much as you need the teachers to buy in. And then once everybody buys in, you certainly see progress being made.
In addition to our e-course, we always try to give a lot of free resources. So we do have a 21-day meditation challenge that we give away for free. It gives you an audio recording every day. It's really great for adults. And it introduces a different style of meditation almost every day. So you get to experience a lot of different ones. So maybe you're like, that didn't resonate with me. The next time, the mantra meditation or a different one. And then you can find your style. So it's a nice little intro for teachers or parents. And then we do have some guides to get people started. Those are all free resources, again, that we just want people to be able to continue to like spread the calm, spread some relaxation to their kids and to their students.
That's fantastic. And people can access that right on your website?
Yep, on our website, and it's all linked in all our social media, of course, too.
Awesome. I'm sure a lot of people will take advantage of that. I know I will.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure. All right. So thank you guys for joining us today. And if anybody wants to reach out to you, you're saying that, the social media and website is the best. Is there an email address, or that would be how you prefer?
Yeah, info@namasteproject.net or social media or website, either one that works. You can book a discovery call directly on our website and we'll call you, or you can email for more information.
All right, great. So thank you guys for joining.
Thanks for having
Thanks for
us. It was
having
really nice to
us.
chat. We love talking about this stuff.